Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
You raised them. You stayed up at 2 a.m. with a sick child pressed against your chest, counting their breaths. You skipped things, vacations, sleep, sometimes even meals, because they needed something first. You drove them to practices and recitals and doctor's appointments and first heartbreaks. You held the family together with both hands, often while nobody noticed, often while you were quietly falling apart yourself. And now, they don't call. Or when they do, it feels like they're calling out of obligation. Like checking a box. The conversation is short, a little stiff, and when you hang up, there's this hollow space that opens up right in the center of your chest. You sit with the phone in your hand and you think, what did I do wrong? That question. God. That question. It follows you into the grocery store when you see another grandmother laughing with her daughter in the cereal aisle. It follows you to bed at night, when the house is so quiet it almost hums. It follows you to church, to coffee with friends, to the middle of a perfectly ordinary Tuesday afternoon when something small, a song, a smell, a photograph on the refrigerator, breaks you open all over again. Nobody talks about this pain. Not really. Oh, people talk around it. They'll say, kids grow up, or they're just busy, or that's just how it is these days. And you smile and nod because what else are you supposed to do? Admit that your heart is broken. Admit that the relationship you poured more of yourself into than anything else in this world feels distant, fractured. Sometimes like a stranger wearing your child's face. You can't say that out loud, so you carry it, quietly. The weight we carry as mothers, it doesn't disappear when they turn 18 or 25 or 40. It just changes shape. Here's what I want you to know. And I want you to really hear this, not just read it and move on. You are not alone in this. There are millions of women, strong, loving, devoted women, sitting in living rooms and kitchens and cars and parking lots right now, feeling exactly what you feel. The longing, the confusion, the love that has absolutely nowhere to go. The grief that doesn't have a proper name because your child is alive. They're out there living their life. And yet something between you feels lost. And nobody gives you permission to mourn that. But I'm giving you that permission right now. Because what you're experiencing is a very real kind of grief. Psychologists sometimes call it ambiguous loss. The loss of a relationship that still technically exists, but not in the form you dreamed it would take. Not in the form you sacrificed for. An ambiguous loss is, in many ways, harder to process than concrete loss, because the world doesn't hold a funeral for it. There's no casserole on your doorstep. No one sends flowers. You just carry it day after day, hoping something will shift. Now, I need to ask you something, and I want you to sit with it honestly. When you imagine your relationship with your adult child, not what it is right now, but what you wish it was, what does that look like? What does it feel like? Maybe it's Sunday dinners where everyone actually wants to be there. Maybe it's a phone call that lasts more than 12 minutes. Maybe it's your daughter leaning her head on your shoulder the way she did when she was 7, or your son saying, I love you like he means it, without you having to say it first. Hold that image. Because underneath all the hurt, underneath the confusion and the quiet whispers of did I fail somehow, underneath all of it, there is still love. Enormous, ferocious, patient love. And that love, that's not the problem. That love is actually the foundation of everything we're going to talk about together. The problem, and this is where most mothers get stuck, is that we were never taught how to love an adult child. We were taught how to nurture, protect, guide, and provide. But nobody sat us down and said there will come a day when the relationship has to completely transform. And if it doesn't, it will break under its own weight. Nobody told us that. And so we kept showing up the same way we always had, with advice, with worry, with that particular brand of mother. Love that says, I see danger ahead. Let me help you. Not realizing that to a grown child, that love can start to feel like pressure. Like criticism. Like a hand on their shoulder that's just a little too tight. I'm not saying that to blame you. I'm saying it because understanding is the first step towards something better. And you deserve something better. So does your child. Let's go somewhere most people won't go. Because it's easy to stay on the surface of this. To talk about phone calls and holiday dinners, and who said what at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. It's easy to catalog the hurts, to replay the conversations, to build a quiet case inside your mind for why you are the one who has been wronged. And maybe you have been. I'm not dismissing that. But if we stay on the surface, nothing changes. And I think you're here because you're tired of nothing changing. So let's go a little deeper. Let's go to the places that are harder to look at. Not because you're broken, not because you failed, but because the truth, even when it stings, is the only thing that ever actually sets us free. Here's something that took me a long time to understand, and I've watched it dawn on countless women with that particular mix of relief and heart-attach that comes when something finally clicks. Your adult child is not pulling away from you. They are pulling toward themselves. There's a difference. A profound, life-changing difference. And we conflate those two things constantly because when you love someone the way a mother loves a child, their movement away from you feels personal. It feels like rejection. It feels like all those years, all that sacrifice added up to being left behind. But here's what's actually happening in the psychological landscape of an adult child, whether they're 28 or 40, 5 or 52, they are in the lifelong process of what developmental psychologists call individuation. Becoming a fully separate self, forming an identity that belongs entirely to them, their own values, their own rhythms, their own way of seeing the world. And here's the part nobody warns you about. That process often requires them to create distance from you. Not because you're a bad mother, not because they don't love you, but because the gravitational pull of a mother's love, especially a devoted mother's love, is so powerful that some children feel they cannot fully breathe, cannot fully become, unless they create some space between themselves and that pull. Think about it this way. When your child was small, your job was to be their entire world. Their safe harbor, their North Star, their source of food and comfort and answers and warmth. You were supposed to be everything, and you were everything. That was right and beautiful and necessary. But a grown person cannot have someone be their entire world. They'll suffocate. Even if the love is genuine, even if the intentions are pure, even if every single thing you ever did came from a place of absolute devotion, the sanctuary you built for them in childhood, that warm, protected space, can start to feel like walls when they're adults now. I want to pause here because I know what some of you are thinking. But I'm not overbearing. I don't interfere. I give them space. I bite my tongue constantly. And I believe you, I genuinely do. But here's the quiet truth we don't always let ourselves examine. Sometimes the most painful dynamic between a mother and adult child isn't about what's said. It's about what's felt. It's the unspoken weight of expectation. The love that arrives with invisible strings attached, not out of manipulation, but out of need. The mother who doesn't say, "You should call more," but whose entire energy communicates, "I am waiting for you. I am counting on you. My happiness lies partly in your hands." Adult children feel that. They feel it deeply, even when nothing is spoken aloud. And the response, the pulling away, the short calls, the missed holidays, isn't cruelty. It's survival. It's a grown person trying to protect their own sense of self from being consumed by guilt and obligation and love so large it casts a shadow. I know that's hard to hear. I know it might feel like I'm defending them or minimizing your pain. I'm not. Your pain is real and it is valid and it deserves to be honored. But we cannot understand our children without being willing to step inside their experience, even for just a moment, even when it's uncomfortable. There's something else we need to name, and this one lives in the unspoken truths that most families carry for generations without ever examining. The wounds from childhood that your child never told you about. This is delicate territory, so stay with me. Most mothers, most good mothers, did things that hurt their children without ever knowing it. Not from malice, not from neglect, but from their own unhealed wounds, their own limitations, their own patterns inherited from their mothers before them. The criticism that was really anxiety in disguise, the emotional unavailability during a difficult season of your own life, the way conflict was handled or wasn't, the divorce if there was one, the favoritism, real or perceived, the moments when a child needed something specific and got something else instead, something that didn't quite fit, even though it was offered with love. These things leave marks. And here's the part that is so deeply human, it almost breaks my heart. Your child may have been carrying those marks for 20, 30 years, quietly, privately, without ever once confronting you about them, because they love you, because they don't want to hurt you, because they weren't sure their feelings were even valid, because the cultural script we're handed says honor thy mother. Don't complain. Be grateful for what you had. So instead of confronting, they distance. Instead of saying that thing you did when I was 14 left a mark on me, they say nothing, they just drift. And you're left standing in the silence wondering what on earth happened. This is why the conversations that could heal everything never happen. Because both sides are protecting the other. Both sides are carrying something heavy and private and unnamed. Both sides are waiting for the other to go first. I want to offer you something here. Not a solution, we'll get there, but a reframe. What if the distance between you and your adult child isn't a verdict on your worth as a mother? What if it's actually an invitation? An invitation to look at the relationship not as what it was, mother and small child, protector and protected, but as what it could be: two adults with full and complicated histories choosing each other. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but out of something that has been tested and reshaped and made more honest. That kind of relationship is possible. I've seen it happen. I've watched women in their 60s and 70s completely transform their connection with an adult child they thought was lost to them. Not by trying harder, not by calling more or sending more cards or showing up more, but by doing something far braver, by changing themselves first, by getting honest about their own patterns, by learning a new language of love, one that fits an adult child, not a 7-year-old, by releasing slowly and painfully and with enormous grace the version of the relationship they had imagined, and opening their hands to the version that was actually possible. That's the work ahead of us. And I want you to know, before we go any further, that you are capable of it. Not because it's easy, but because you have already proven 1,000 times over that you are someone who loves bigger than her own comfort. This is just one more time. So we've sat with the pain. We've looked at it honestly, turned it over in our hands, stopped pretending it wasn't there. We've gone into the uncomfortable territory of understanding why things feel the way they feel, not to assign blame, not to build a case, but to finally see clearly. And seeing clearly, as hard as it is always the beginning of something new. Now comes the part that matters most. Not because the understanding wasn't important. It was enormously. But because understanding without action is just sophisticated suffering. And you've suffered enough. So let's talk about what you can actually do. Not in a checklist kind of way, not in a 10 steps to fix your family kind of way, because relationships aren't spreadsheets and people aren't problems to be solved. But in a real, honest, this is what actually works kind of way. The first thing, and I cannot stress this enough, is the hardest thing. You have to stop waiting for them to go first. I know how unfair that feels. You didn't create this distance. You didn't ask for it. In many ways, you've been the one showing up, the one reaching out, the one leaving voicemails that go unanswered and sending birthday cards into what feels like a void. Why should you have to be the one to change? Here's the honest answer. Because you're the one who wants it to be different. And because you're the one with the wisdom, the life experience, the perspective that comes from having lived long enough to know that pride is a very expensive thing to hold on to. The years are not infinite. The chances to reach across the distance don't multiply forever. And there is nothing more heartbreaking than two people who loved each other deeply, spending years waiting for the other one to make the first real move until one day the opportunity simply closes. Don't let that be your story. So what does going first actually look like? Because I don't mean calling more. I don't mean showing up unannounced. I don't mean sending longer emails explaining your side of things. Going first means something quieter and far more powerful than any of that. It means sitting down, maybe with a journal, maybe in the sanctuary of your own bedroom with the door closed and the world outside, and asking yourself one genuinely difficult question. What would I need to let go of to have the relationship I actually want? Not what would they need to change. Not what would need to happen to you. What would you need to release? Maybe it's the expectation of how often they should call, Maybe it's the image of Sunday dinners that look a certain way, with everyone present and happy and grateful. Maybe it's the need to be consulted about their decisions, their parenting choices, their relationships, their careers. Maybe it's the habit of offering advice before it's been asked for. Even when the advice is good, even when it comes from genuine love and experience. Maybe, and this is the deepest one, it's the identity. Because for so many women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, being a mother isn't just something they do. It's the core of who they are. It's the role that gave their life its most profound meaning, its greatest sense of purpose. And when that role starts to shrink, when the children don't need you the same way, when your opinion carries less weight, when the calls get shorter and the visits get fewer, it doesn't just hurt the relationship. It shakes something fundamental about who you believe yourself to be. And so the clinging, the pushing, the advice, giving, the quiet martyrdom, sometimes isn't really about the child at all. It's about a woman trying to hold onto her own sense of value in a world that doesn't always honor the depth of what mothers carry. I say that with tremendous tenderness, because that is one of the most human things imaginable. And recognizing it isn't weakness. Recognizing it is the beginning of freedom. Here's something practical, and I want you to really try this. The next time you interact with your adult child, whether it's a phone call, a text, a visit, try something radically different. Try being genuinely, completely curious about them. Not curious in the way that loops back to worry. Not curious in the way that's really just surveillance wrapped in a question, but truly openly curious. The way you'd be curious about a fascinating person you just met at dinner. Ask them what they're excited about right now. Ask them what's been hard lately. Ask them what they're reading or watching or thinking about. And then, this is the critical part, listen without an agenda. Don't listen for opportunities to give advice. Don't listen for warning signs that confirm your worries. Don't listen while simultaneously composing your response in your head. Just listen. Let their life be interesting to you rather than something to be managed or assessed. Do you know what most adult children say they want most from their mothers? Not more love. They know they're loved. They've never doubted the love. They want to feel seen. As who they actually are right now. Not who they were at 12, not who you hoped they'd become, not a project or a concern or a reflection of your own success and failure as a parent, but as a full, complicated, autonomous human being whose inner life is rich and real and worth being curious about. That shift, from managing to witnessing, can change everything. Now I want to talk about the conversations, the real ones, because in almost every strained relationship between a mother and adult child, there is at least one conversation that has never happened. Something that was felt but never said. A hurt, an apology, a truth that both people are circling around from a safe distance, hoping the other one will somehow just know. They won't know. Not unless someone says it. And here's the thing about initiating a real conversation, not a confrontation, not a rehashing of old grievances, but a genuine, open, vulnerable conversation. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be a sit-down intervention with everything on the table. It can be as simple as a letter. There is something about the written word that creates safety. Your child can read it alone, in their own time, without the pressure of your eyes on them, without the complicated body language and old emotional patterns that activate the moment you're in the same room. A letter gives them space to feel what you're saying before they have to respond to it. And what do you say in that letter? Not your side of the story. Not a list of everything that's hurt you. Not even an explanation of your intentions. You said, I see that something between us has felt broken, and I take responsibility for my part in that. I don't fully understand what my part is yet. I'm still learning, but I want to. I love you in a way that goes beyond any version of you I might have held onto from the past, and I want to know the person you are now. Something like that. In your own words, from your own heart. That kind of letter doesn't demand a response. It doesn't create obligation, it just opens a door. Quietly, without pressure, and leaves it open. One more thing before we move forward, and this one is entirely about you. Your healing, your peace, your sense of self, your joy, cannot live inside your child's choices. It simply cannot. Because you have no control over their choices. You never did, not really, not even when they were small. And building your emotional well-being on a foundation of someone else's decisions is like building a house on water. It will never hold. This is not cold advice. This is not me telling you to care less. It's me telling you that you deserve a life that has weight and warmth and meaning that belongs entirely to you. Not to your role as a mother, not to whether your daughter calls on Sunday or your son remembers your birthday, but to the woman you are, the woman with her own history, her own wisdom, her own capacity for friendship and creativity and joy that has nothing to do with being anyone's mother. Who is she? That woman. When did you last make room for her? Because here's what I've watched happen again and again in women who do this work. When they stop making the relationship with their adult child the center of their emotional universe. When they invest in their own friendships, their own passions, their own inner life, something unexpected happens. The relationship with the child often starts to breathe again. Not always, not immediately, but the desperate energy shifts. The grasping loosens. And adult children, who have very sensitive antennae for obligation and guilt, begin to feel something different coming from their mother. Something lighter. Something that doesn't require anything from them to be okay. And that is when they often start to come back. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally given them room. We've come a long way together. And I want you to feel that for a moment before we go any further. Because you didn't have to stay. You could have clicked away after the first few minutes when things got uncomfortable, when the mirror got a little too clear. But you stayed. You kept reading, kept sitting with the hard things, kept showing up for yourself even when some of what you read wasn't easy to receive. That takes courage. More than most people realize. And it tells me something important about you, something you may have forgotten in the middle of all this pain. It tells me that underneath the grief, underneath the confusion and the longing and the quiet heartbreak of loving someone who feels far away, there is a woman who genuinely wants to grow, who wants more than just relief from pain, who wants something real. That woman is who this final part is for. Let's talk about forgiveness, not the greeting card version. Not the bumper sticker that says forgive and forget, as if pain has an off switch and memory is something you can simply choose to erase. I mean real forgiveness, the kind that is earned slowly, practiced imperfectly, and has nothing whatsoever to do with whether the other person deserves it or has even apologized. Because here's the unspoken truth about forgiveness that nobody seems to want to say plainly. It is not a gift you give to the person who hurt you. It is a gift you give to yourself. When you carry resentment toward your adult child, for the missed calls, the harsh words, the holidays that didn't happen, the version of family you were promised and never quite received, you are not punishing them. They are out there living their lives, largely unaware of the weight you're carrying inside your chest. The resentment lives in you. It takes up space in you. It colors your mornings and shadows your quiet moments and sits between you and genuine peace like a wall made of old, hardened grief. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was acceptable. It is not pretending the hurt wasn't real. It is not even reconciliation. Necessarily, forgiveness and reconciliation are two different things, and it is entirely possible to forgive someone deeply while still maintaining boundaries with them, while still protecting your own heart. Forgiveness is simply the decision to put down the weight, to stop letting the past have a permanent address inside your present. And I want to ask you, gently, without judgment, what would your life feel like if you weren't carrying this particular grief anymore? Not if the relationship were magically fixed, not if your child suddenly became everything you hoped they'd be, but if you were simply free of the bitterness, the scorekeeping, the replaying of old conversations at 3 a.m. What would that version of you feel like? Sit with that, because that version of you is available. She is not a fantasy. She is the woman you are becoming if you choose her. I want to tell you something about the quiet whispers, those voices that visit you in unguarded moments, when you're folding laundry or driving somewhere alone or lying in the soft darkness just before sleep. The ones that say you weren't enough. You got it wrong. You failed the most important job you ever had. Those voices are not the truth. They are the sound of an old wound speaking in your own voice, using your own insecurities as ammunition. And they are cruel in the particular way that only self-directed cruelty can be. Intimate, relentless, and utterly convincing because they know every vulnerable corner of you. You have to learn to talk back to them, not by silencing them with positive affirmations that feel hollow and borrowed, but by meeting them with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend. Imagine a woman you love, your sister, your closest friend, someone whose heart you know intimately, and imagine her telling you that she believes she was a bad mother, that she failed, that she doesn't deserve the peace she's looking for. What would you say to her? You would tell her the truth, that she did the best she could with what she had and what she knew. That loving imperfectly is still loving, that the fact that she's still asking these questions, still wanting more for herself and her children, is itself the evidence of her goodness. You would hold her. You would refuse to let her reduce herself to her worst moments or her greatest regrets. Speak to yourself that way. You deserve the same grace you would give without hesitation to someone you love. Now I want to talk about something we've been circling around this entire time, and it's time to name it directly: grief. Real, legitimate, profound grief for the relationship you imagine, for the version of family you carried in your heart all those years while you were building and sacrificing and holding everything together, for the grandmother and daughter lunches and the phone calls that go both ways and the closeness that you watched other women seem to have so effortlessly and wondered, in your most private moments, why it felt so much harder for you. That grief is real, and it deserves to be mourned properly. Not endlessly, not in a way that becomes its own kind of prison, but honored, witnessed, given its proper weight and its proper tears and its proper space. Maybe in a journal, maybe in a therapist's office, maybe in a long, honest conversation with a friend who loves you enough to just listen without trying to fix it. Maybe in a letter you write and never send. Because here is what happens when we don't grieve: the grief doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It comes out sideways, as bitterness, as manipulation, as the passive hurt that leaks into every interaction with our children, whether we intend it or not. The grief that isn't honored becomes the very thing that keeps pushing the people we love further away. So let yourself feel it, all of it. The longing and the loss and the love and the anger and the confusion and the tenderness and the hope that refuses to completely die, no matter how many times it's disappointed. Feel it, and then slowly, gradually, in your own time, begin to let it move through you rather than live inside you permanently. Here's what I want for you. And I mean this not as a professional offering a prescription, but as one human being speaking to another who has clearly carried something heavy for a very long time. I want you to build a life so full of meaning, so rich with connection and purpose and small daily joys, that the relationship with your adult child, as much as you love them, as deeply as you want closeness with them, is not the only source of warmth in your world. Find your people. The women who make you laugh until your stomach hurts. The friendships that ask nothing of your role as a mother and everything of you as a person. The book club or the garden or the volunteer work or the creative pursuit you've been putting off for years because everyone else's needs always seemed more urgent than your own becoming. Build the inner life that belongs entirely to you. Because here is the most quietly revolutionary thing I know about mothers and adult children. The dynamic shifts most profoundly not when the child changes, but when the mother becomes so genuinely alive in her own right that the relationship is no longer weighted down by unspoken need. When your child calls and hears a woman who is thriving, not performing happiness, not passive-aggressively signaling how fine she is without them, but genuinely, fully engaged with her own one precious life, something shifts. The guilt dissolves. The obligation lightens. And in its place grows something that couldn't exist before. The desire to actually be with you. Not because they have to, because they want to. That is the relationship worth building toward, not the one held together by guilt and obligation and the unspoken threat of a mother's disappointment, but the one where two people, a woman and her grown child, each complete in themselves, choose each other freely, again and again, out of genuine love and genuine delight in who the other person is. You are not at the end of this story. I need you to hear that. Because sometimes when we've been in pain for a long time, we start to believe that the way things are is the way things will always be, that the distance is permanent, that the chance for something better has somehow already passed us by. It hasn't. As long as there is breath and willingness and love, and you clearly have all three, the story is still being written. The chapter you are in right now, as painful and confusing as it is not the final one. It is, if you choose it, the turning point. The place where you stopped waiting and started becoming, where you traded the grief of what was lost for the possibility of what could still be found. Your child needs you to heal, not for them, for you. But the beautiful, unexpected gift of a mother who does her own work, who finds her own wholeness, who stops needing her child to be a certain way in order to be okay. That gift lands on everyone in its radius. It lands on your child. It lands on your grandchildren. It lands on the women around you who are watching, quietly, wondering if peace is possible for them too. It is possible. It is possible for you. Not because the relationship will necessarily become what you dreamed it would be, but because you will become someone who is no longer defined by its absence. Someone who carries her love fully, freely, without grasping. Someone who has learned late, maybe, but not too late, that the most powerful thing a mother can offer her adult child is not advice or worry or the weight of decades of sacrifice. It is the sight of her own mother, living fully, loving freely, and finally, at peace with herself. That is the inheritance worth leaving. That is the ending worth writing.